So I graduated from Lakeville South High School in 2011, and since then, I've been at the University of Minnesota. I'm studying microbiology, and I'm a junior now. A few weeks ago, I was asked to participate in a focus group to talk about my experiences with education. And as we sat down, the first question we were asked was, did your high school prepare you for college? Now, initially, I thought, well, of course it did. I'm from Lakeville schools, and Lakeville schools are awesome. But there was a nagging part of me that reminded me that I really struggled when I got to college. I had difficulties taking what I learned and applying it to meet my professors' expectations. And as I soon found out, everyone else in the focus group had experienced this same thing. We were all decent students in high school, we did things by the books, so why did we have so many issues with this transition? So I asked myself this question, and I thought, well, first, maybe it was me. Maybe I didn't try hard enough, or maybe I wasn't capable. So I looked back on my freshman year, and as I thought about it, there were a lot of sleepless nights where I stayed up studying for tests, working on projects, and since then I've done fairly well in school. So I'm going to go ahead and dismiss that. Maybe it was a little bit me, but for the most part I don't think it was. So then I thought, well, what if it was my teachers? What if they just didn't prepare me well enough for college? And so I looked back on my career in Lakeville schools, and I couldn't think of a single teacher that didn't care for their students and want them to succeed after high school. In fact, not too long ago, I ran into my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Ritter, and after not seeing her since 1999 when I graduated from kindergarten, she recognized me, came up to me, and started asking questions about myself and my family like it was just yesterday. That's the kind of passion that every Lakeville teacher brings to their job every day. It's something unique, but it's not unique in Lakeville. So I dismissed the idea that it was the teachers not preparing me well. And so then I thought, what if it's what I learned in high school? So I tried to look back at what I learned in high school, and as I tried to remember what I learned, I could come up with a few miscellaneous facts, but I could barely remember anything. In fact, I was struck by how little I remembered from high school. I figured it out, and I spent about 4,000 hours in class here at Lakeville South. So how come I couldn't remember much? Was it the sick days that I took? I don't think so. So I realized, I think it's how you have to learn in high school in order to get by. In high school, everything is based on grades, and you're always checking your grade book to make sure you're doing well. And the way classes are set up, you get lecture 2 where you're taught new information, and then you have to prepare for the tests, and that means a bunch of memorization, especially the night before, staying up really late, trying to memorize all this information so you can get to the test and just dump it out all over the test, everything that you know. And afterwards, do you think the students are going home and studying the material more, or maybe trying to delve deeper into it? Of course not. They're going home, they're trying to forget it so that they can have room for the next stuff that they need to memorize for the next test. So I asked myself, why didn't this apply to college very well? I definitely stay up late studying for tests still. I definitely have really difficult tests that I have to work on. But I think the difference is in the application of the material that we learn. More often in college, I'm asked to take a little bit of information and go out, go online, go into the library, find a lot of new information, bring it all together to create new, novel ideas. And this sort of thinking, it's a different way of thinking than the high school memorize mentality. It encourages open-mindedness and creativity and a willingness to explore that you don't get with the high school mentality. So I think we can probably do away with some of the memorization in high school. And this would free up a lot of time. So what are we going to do with all this extra time? Let me tell you a little bit of a story to answer that. So about a year ago, I met Wes and Cassie. I don't have pictures of them, I'm sorry. But Wes and Cassie are also undergraduates at the university, but they had this really cool idea. They wanted to get a bunch of undergraduates together to start a research lab led completely by the undergraduates, with no professors overseeing us, no primary investigator or anything. And at the time, I was interested in getting involved in research, and they were looking for more people to join their lab, so they invited me to join, and I was crazy enough to say, sure, why not? And so we started looking for a place to do our research. And this was difficult, but through a little bit of networking, we were able to find a professor who was willing to let us use a bench in his lab without any questions being asked. And so we were really excited about this. We thought this was a huge step forward until we realized how much more red tape we'd have to go through. So we all divvied up all the work, and I agreed to take care of all the safety aspects for the group. So this entailed making sure that we complied with every rule from every governing body that oversees any biological or medical research at the university, which is a lot, let me tell you. And I went ahead and I had to go through and find in all of our procedures anything that was dangerous, and I had to understand what that meant. And I realized in order to do that, I had to go look up all the biology behind everything and figure all of that out. And through this process, I learned not only how to do everything, but how to do all the biology behind it and all the theories behind it. So eventually we came back together, and through some luck and a little bit of begging and borrowing, we were finally able to stock our lab with supplies. And since this summer, we've been able to get in there and actually do some real research, trying to find some alternative options to antibiotics. And actually, just this week, we found some candidates that might have some promise to them. So this is the kind of experience that I want to bring to the high school classroom, because from this experience, I've learned so much. I've learned a whole different way to look at problems, a whole different way to problem solve. It's a different mindset that leaves me a lot more open-minded and a lot better at critical thinking. And I think that's something that really is lacking in the high school classroom. So, how is this going to look like? Obviously, we don't have the funding to have every student start their own research lab in high school, although that would be really cool. So what are we going to do? Well, I think it starts with just a regular lecture, just like any other high school classroom. But the teacher doesn't tell them everything they need to know. The teacher intentionally leaves out a few things here and there, but then fills that in with showing the students how to use tools to find more information. This could be online journals, websites, software programs, something like that. And then the teacher asks the students a question. And it's going to be something open-ended, something where there is no definite answer. The students can't just look in a magazine or their textbook to find the answer. And they set the students free. They let them go in groups or individually and look online, look in journals to try to gather information and come up with novel ideas. And then at the end of the week, at the end of the lecture, however long they decide to take, the students all come back together and they share their ideas to the bigger group. Now, you're going to get different answers from different students, but this is great. This is what the teacher can use to facilitate a discussion about the topic and to fill in all the holes that maybe the students might have missed. So this gives the students a different way to learn the material. They're not just being told the material, they actually have to go out and find the material for themselves. It's a more active way, and this is called discovery learning. And discovery learning, with the right amount of teacher guidance, has been shown to be very useful in education. Now, I actually was lucky enough recently to have a good experience with discovery learning. My introductory biology class at the university was based on this theory. Now, we were divided into groups of 9 students, and the class was pretty much run like I just described. Now, over the course of the whole semester, we were also asked to work on a long-term project. And the long-term project was actually really broad. We were told that we had to identify some problem in the world and solve it using genetic engineering. That's all we were told. So throughout the semester, we identified a problem, which was lack of access to clean drinking water. And we solved it actually using some proteins and rice plants that can purify the water that they grow in. Now, we were freshmen in college who had almost no biology experience to speak of, yet through this process, we were able to learn not only the techniques for how genetic engineering works, the science behind it, but also broader biology science that comes out as well. So, this experience works great in a regular classroom, but it works exceptionally well in a lab setting. Another portion of this class actually involved the students participating in a real research project that was actually working towards a goal that was going to be published at the university. So I think this is something that we can bring to high schools as well. There are a ton of researchers out there looking for basically grunt work. People need to do all the busy work, and the researchers don't want to do it all by themselves. But for a high schooler, these are really, really cool techniques that they've never done before, and it's actually really exciting to get to do. So if we can find some way to match these high school teachers, high school classrooms up with these researchers, we can create something really cool. In fact, this is something that my research group that I told you about wants to do. We've been going around to Minnesota community colleges and Minnesota high schools, trying to bring our research there so that students can go and look for alternatives to antibiotics themselves, and if they find them, cool. They can tell their friends that they found an alternative to an antibiotic, and it might be used someday. It's a really cool experience that I think only discovery learning can offer. So discovery learning is going to encourage students to have this creativity and this need for exploration, and they're going to be critical thinkers, and it's really going to help get students engaged in their own learning. And students will learn how to fail and not think of it in a negative light. They'll learn from their mistakes. And it's a whole different frame shift in the way we think. And I'd just like to end with a quote here from Christopher Hitchens. He says, "The essence of the independent mind lies not in what it thinks, but in how it thinks." And I encourage you all to consider how we want our students to think about their education. Thank you.